Dearest gentle listeners, welcome to the first episode of Fics and Recs, a fan fiction podcast. I'm WMN. In today's episode, we will listen to one of the fics that you recommended for all-time favorite Polin one-shot and have a conversation with the author after. Thank you for tuning in. Regrets, longing, romance, love. Today we bring you Falling, written by Giaele. Please be aware that this story contains adult themes and dialogue and is rated mature. The bedsheets mocked him. The yellow bedsheets, not gold as his mother had said, but yellow, mocked him as he thrashed about in despair. He wished to rip them off the bed, consign them to the very pits of hell, then toss himself in with them. I would never dream of courting Penelope Featherington, not in your wildest fantasies, Fife. Those words haunted him. The memory of them blurred from the drink and bravado of that night. What good was his newfound confidence if it meant he had lost one of the most important people in his life? It was little wonder she had not replied to his letters. How could he look himself in the mirror knowing the hurt he had caused her? He needed to make amends. Show her just how special she was to him. It was done. Their first awkward meeting over. Penelope wished she could have avoided him completely, hoped that her lack of replies would have deterred him. He had been surprisingly persistent. He had missed her, he said, worried about her, cared to hear how she had been. His words had been hopeful, his tone soft, so different to the last time she had heard him speak. It was his eyes, however, which posed the biggest danger to all the walls she had painstakingly built up around her heart. They spoke to her very soul, threatened to have her fall deep into his. There had been no choice but to lay his sins at his feet. His silence on the matter had shocked her. She had expected excuses, pretty words, promises of friendship, lies. None of those had been forthcoming. He had stood there, deathly pale, looking every inch as the cold, beautiful marble statue he stood beside. When she walked away, he had let her. If there had been any lingering doubts as to the veracity of his words, any small hope that she might have misunderstood, it was now gone. Going forward, they would meet as nothing more than indifferent acquaintances. She would make sure of that. Her pen began to glide over the sheet of paper in front of her. There was much she wished to achieve this season, and none of it included any further thoughts on Colin Bridgerton. Dearest gentle readers, the third Bridgerton son has decided to grace us all with his presence early this season. There has been much speculation as to the reason for his prompt return. Perhaps he grew weary of his travels, or, more likely, having sampled all the delights the continent has to offer, he had now turned his sights closer to home. Whatever the reason, it is a welcome treat for all the matchmaking mammas and their simpering daughters, especially as he returned with a rakish new look which had all the debutantes swooning. The tea stood cold in his cup. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching on the beads of her dress as she absent-mindedly fidgeted with them. Penelope had been speaking, her conversation full of which gentleman's suit she should accept, as Colin quietly spiraled into melancholy beside her. Slowly, they had been rebuilding their friendship. He had even offered to help her find a suitor. What a cack-handed idea that had turned out to be. With every lesson, something new seemed to build between them, better than what had been there before. Then they had kissed. It didn't matter if she had asked or he had offered. The truth was, it had tilted his whole world on its axis, made him realize he was falling in love with her. No, not falling, already fallen. He had first fallen from his horse at her feet. He had then fallen at her smile. He fell at her barbs, her witty letters, her brilliant mind. He fell when they danced, when they touched, when she laughed. He had been falling again and again for years. Penelope, for her part, had continued as if nothing extraordinary had occurred between them. He had stood on the sidelines of the ball the previous evening, watching as she laughed and danced with other men. Her smile was radiant as she shooed off her successes to him. Colin had downed 3 glasses of champagne and left early on the flimsiest of excuses. There was silence in the room now. Clearly, they had both run out of things to say. "I cannot do this any more, Pen." His quiet words echoed with the horrible finality of a judge's gavel. If she was shocked by his pronouncement, she hid it well. Only the tightness of her smile as she thanked him gave away any of her emotions. He had stood as she had made to take her leave. She had laughed, saying that such formalities were not necessary between them. Her hand brushed against his for the merest of moments as she had turned to the door, and his heart had sung. Fool that he was, he had let her walk away. Her dress was halfway to her waist. His eager hands burned against her breasts as his mouth devoured her. She could feel the sharp edges of her crumpled whistledown column scratching against her skin as her body brushed against his. The carriage lurched, and Penelope knew she should push him away, should stop herself from falling further into him. But she was weak, so she allowed him to draw her closer, pulled at his own clothing with equal ferocity. The roaring inferno of desire he had sparked in her demanding she leave no barriers between them. Their argument had been fierce, although completely different to her falling out with Eloise when she had discovered her secret identity. Guilt sat heavy in the pit of her stomach. Penelope had wanted him to be angry at her, to lash out, to say that he never wished to speak to her again after all the hurt she had caused him. It would make it simpler to finally banish him from her silly heart, which had fallen for him once more. His half-crazed words had surprised her. He did not care about what she had written of Lady Crane or his sister, but only about her and her safety. She had softened until he had demanded she give up Whistledown. In the insanity which had followed, he had insisted she give him the draft which she carried. Her ire raised, she had challenged that he retrieve it himself before opening her cloak and presenting him with her décolletage. Eyes dark and determined, he had pulled her across the carriage and onto his lap. Defiantly she met his gaze as his fingers tauntingly traced the seam of her bosom. Her breath grew shallow, heat spreading from where his long fingers dipped under the neckline of her dress. His mouth swallowed her gasp when she realized his clever hands had undone the ties on her dress, allowing him to pull it down at his convenience. There had been few thoughts after that. He had ruined her, not in the literal sense, although if they had been caught, that would also have been the case. No, he had ruined her for any other man. She was certain her passions would never burn for another the way they did for him. Her heart would never fall for another the way it had for him. But he did not, could not, love her. How could anyone love Lady Whistledown? That was why, when the carriage stopped, she had rejected his proposal. "3 days. It had only been 3 days since his world had been once again upended by Penelope. That fateful morning, after walking for miles in the rain, he had finally come to a resolution. He would court her, convince her he was the only gentleman she should consider. They were already the dearest of friends. Surely the leap from friendship to love could not be so great for her as to be insurmountable. With a fresh change of clothes and a bouquet of flowers, he had arrived at her door. As throughout the whole of their friendship, his timing had been rotten as he watched her sneak into a hired hack. From the moment he had followed her, he knew things would never be the same between them. Now he stalked the ballroom for her, noticing the spies masquerading as gentlemen who frequented these events at the behest of Her Majesty. The search for Lady Whistledown had taken a sinister turn this season, and worry knotted his stomach now that he knew exactly who it was they were hunting. He found her alone by the refreshment table, a glass of champagne halfway up to her lips. With a look which would brook no opposition, he plucked the flute from her fingers and discarded it with little care. "We need to talk, Penelope. Come with me." His hand clasped hers before she could argue, and he led her to the nearest unoccupied space, which happened to be the library. She looked flushed, her eyes wary as she put as much distance between them as the room would allow. Haltingly she asked, "What do you wish to speak of?" With little fanfare he pulled the Whistledown column from his jacket pocket and presented it to her. "This, your latest column. My particular issue is with this part at the end. Shall I read it to you?" She shrugged. "If you must." Mr. Colin Bridgerton was seen exiting a carriage with hair askew and a loosened cravat. Did this author not tell you that it was only a matter of time before some lady, if they may be called that, caught the attentions of this rather dashing rake? What is the problem with it? Is it not the truth? The problem, my dearest Pen, is that it is not quite the truth. Whistledown, you have been lying about me all season. Where is the lie? Did you not ravish a young lady in a carriage? That part, I will grant you, was accurate. Then? I am not a rake, Penelope. Are you not? No, he said with conviction. And I shall not have you rejecting my proposal out of a misapprehension that I go around doing such things with all ladies. She did not appear convinced, and it rankled at him. He took a step forward as she took a step back. Ask me what I did with my evenings whilst in Cyprus, Pen. Ask me what I have done with my nights this season. Each word was punctuated with a stride towards her, even as she continued to back away from him. Ask me. What did you... Impatiently, he did not even let her finish the question he had demanded of her. I wrote to you. I wrote about you. I dreamed of you, and when I woke up, hard and wanting, I took myself in hand and spilled myself to thoughts of you. Colin. Her back hit a bookcase, and he closed the scant distance between them. He could feel the heat of her, his hands itching to hold her. When we kissed, yours are the first lips mine have touched. When I ravished you in the carriage, yours are the first breasts I have ever caressed. I have never desired anyone as I do you. I shall never love anyone the way I do you. Marry me. Could she say yes? Could she finally let herself have him? All season she had ascribed his motives to guilt, friendship, lust, even though her heart had always whispered otherwise. The way he looked at her now, his words and promises were all she had ever wanted. What of Lady Whistledown? She had to ask. If Whistledown were to fall, she did not wish to take him with her. I do not care. But what of the risks? It shall hang over us like the sword of Damocles, ready to tear us apart. We will work something out. Please, Penelope, I have been in agony. Please agree to be my wife. It seemed he was not above begging. He was so close now, his breath burning hot along her jaw, his hands caressing gently up her arms. Softly, he whispered in her ear, "Let yourself fall, Pen. I shall always catch you." And so she did. From a captivating story to the mastermind behind it, joining us today is the talented Giaele to share insights about fandoms, fanfiction, and her creative process. Welcome, Giaele.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to get to know you a little bit better. But before we dive into the amazingness that is falling, I would love to know, what's the story behind what got you into fan fiction?
Probably the first fandom that got me into any sort of fan fiction would be Doctor Who.
Which Doctor?
I mean, really it was the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, that kind of dragged me into the whole fanfic thing. So I went searching for fans online, see what I could find. Found a little LiveJournal community. Do you remember LiveJournal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Blast from the past, that one.
So you wanted more stories. You wanted more stories with the Doctor?
Well, I mean, I was kind of a Dr. Rose shipper back in the day.
Oh, so you were shipping. So you wanted more romance?
Yeah, I was, yes. Yes. And obviously that story didn't exactly...
Nope.
For a while it wasn't in a great place, so I kind of wanted a good ending, and that just led me down the rabbit hole.
Now, did you write for that fandom, or were you strictly a reader?
I dabbled a bit. I wasn't very confident with my writing, but obviously, like I've said, it was a good community. I had a good group of friends back then.
Yeah.
So I did dabble a little bit.
Well, isn't that kind of the great thing about fan fiction? Is what I love is that when I go into a tag, there's first-time writers, there's writers that probably should be like published authors.
Oh my God, yes.
But for whatever reason they didn't go down that route. Inside of that group, there are people who are writing for the first time. So that's one of the reasons why I love fan fiction. So I think it's really cool that you dabbled in your first fandom.
Yeah, I mean, I did have grand plans for this epic fanfic, but they never got off my notebook. Back
well,
then.
Well, if there is a fandom to have grand plans for, it would be the Doctor Who fandom, wouldn't it? Literally everything is on the table.
Yeah, and I mean, it was going to be a trilogy and everything. I had it all planned out, and it just,
I would read every syllable of your Doctor Who trilogy after you're done with Polin. Keep writing Polin. Don't you ever stop writing Polin. Okay. But please do go back to your grand trilogy, especially now because we're about to get Tennant and we're about to get Dr. Donna.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. So excited.
I know. I'm freaking out, honestly, because I got a little... Do you know anything about what's going to happen?
Yes, because unfortunately, back then, I got my very young nephew into it. Yeah. And now he's completely obsessed, so he keeps sending me all this stuff, and he was like, oh my God, the spoilers are out, there's spoilers out, and I'm like... Yes! I'm not going to look, and then I looked.
And you looked.
Yeah.
Yes, I did too. I was mad at myself, but I couldn't help it. So yeah, I'm really excited.
I am, yeah, as well. It's like, can't wait, honestly.
It's also good because nothing is happening in our fandom right now.
My gosh, yes, definitely.
Thank God we have amazing writers, because it would have been a long, lonely, sad road without our Polin fanfiction writers.
I know, honestly. They just keep us going, honestly. Because it's literally silence.
It's been a year, almost a year and a half since we got announced, and there's we have 4 pictures.
I know.
Oh my gosh, it's wild. It is wild. It is a surreal time to be Bridgerton Polin fan.
I mean, I think in a way I'm quite lucky, because I wasn't quite as into it when it got announced. I was kind of like,
oh, I was gonna ask you what brought you. I was gonna say, was it the show or the books? But it was the show.
Well, no, if we start all the way right at the beginning, it was actually the books, because I read the books about 10 years ago. Yeah.
And was Romancing Mr. Bridgerton your favorite?
Oh, most
Tell the
definitely.
Truth. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I just love the whole friends to lovers thing, and it was just such a different, in a way, tone to a lot of the other books. It's just, it's a nice cozy story for a lot of it.
They're friends, yeah.
Yeah, and I just love that. That is just my favorite thing in any book, in any TV show, in any movie. It is.
Friends.
I end up disappointed a lot. Yeah. I end up disappointed a lot, because for a lot of writers it just isn't. They prefer, I think, the sort of the conflict and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen a lot of the time on TV and in books, and so whenever I do find it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I can finally read something like this.
And it's all encapsulated into this one book and then into one season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the nice thing about Bridgerton is you pop in and you get a love story, like a full, complete love story.
Yeah, that's great. I like the way that they're all quite individual as well. So you can...
Exactly.
You can take and pick whatever you want from each of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you read the books 10 years ago.
Yes. I did.
And then the show comes out?
Yeah, then the show comes out, and in all fairness, I wasn't that excited about the first series, because, the first book, The Duke and I, it's sort of...
Yeah.
I found it a bit bland.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
You're not alone.
Okay.
Sorry, JQ.
Yeah. I'm just trying to not, be very sort of controversial here. I don't want...
But to me, what was exciting was that Shonda took it. So Shonda, we have a Black Queen. We have brown characters. Like, to me, that's why I was like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I am invested. Even though I agree, Duke and I was not... Is it my least favorite one? I don't know.
It's...
Maybe. I agree that it was quite slow for me as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I was fully invested. And I loved Romancing Mr. Bridgerton too, so.
Yeah, so in a way, I wasn't... I watched the first series, then I watched the second series, and, it was good. And then, obviously, I found out that Series 3 was Polin, and I was like, oh my gosh, they've moved it up. Thank God for that. And then, I just kind of let it slide, because I was like, well, it'll probably come out in about a year,
Right.
As we all thought, who was going to...
Oh, you are so lucky.
who was...
You gave yourself a couple months of just
I was like...
Relaxing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. They'll start filming. They'll be out next year. That's okay. Then, obviously, things started...
84 years later.
Yeah, we're all here, you know. We're all the old lady from Titanic, aren't we? You know, just sitting there. It's been 84 years.
What was it that made you join more in earnest? Were you reading fan fiction? Were you reading the Polin fan fiction?
I was. I basically went in search of, as I tend to do with fandoms. One day they'll pop up in my head and be like, actually, I'm going to go search for some fan fiction there. So I went off in search of Polin fan fiction, and I found all these amazing fan fictions.
Yeah.
And I just devoured them. It was like, I just went on probably about a 2-month binge of fan fiction.
It's so good. Oh, our tag is so good.
I know that there's just so many, and they're all so good. The quality is insanely good.
Honestly, that's why I am loving doing this project, because when I asked community for recs, people were pulling recs from like real deep in the timeline, and I was like, oh, I totally forgot about this one. And I had such a blast going through the rec lists that the community put together.
Yeah,
because it was a really good mixture. And I just, you know, there's so our tag is real full of some gems.
Yeah, definitely, and you can go quite far back, and there's such a variety of them as well, and so many that, like you say, that people will rec, and you're like, oh my god, I've not seen that one, or I forgot about it, because there's just so much and so much quality. That
it's such a good day. It is such a good day when someone recs you something that you haven't read yet, and you have like a novel to read, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just like, I have all these books sitting around my house which I intend to read someday, and then it's like, oh, actually there's this new fanfic, I think I'll go with that then. You know?
I went to the beach with a beach read, and I was like, this book is not nearly as good as like most of the fan fiction, but I muscled through a novel.
Oh, well done. I've not done that.
I know, I was quite proud of myself.
I've not done that in quite a while. I mean, I have quite a few books which
I was like, I can do this. I can read a book. I can do this. Meanwhile, I'll read like a 400-page fanfic.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll read that in a day, less than a day.
Yeah, for real. I just won't sleep. I won't sleep. I won't eat. I'll feed my children. I'll take care of my children. But other than that, it's only
reading. That's just
laid into the night.
The bare minimum. Okay.
So what made you start writing?
Okay, so I went on this binge of lots of fanfic on AO3, and then I started getting all these ideas, because I always like coming up with stories in my head. Most of the time I don't write them down. So I started coming up with all these like Polin ideas for stories, and I thought, you know what? I need to start writing again, because I've not written in quite a long time. Yeah. So I thought, I need to start writing again, and I sat down and started writing some of these ideas. And then the rom-com palooza happened, and yes. And
so that was that really your first Polin fic ever?
That was my first published. Yes, I have a couple that
published.
Yeah.
What? There's a vault. The Giaele vault.
There's a few with sort of half-written couple of chapters, which I'm hoping to get to at some point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Excited about that.
Okay.
So you wrote You wrote
I wrote
Groundhog Day.
I wrote a Groundhog
fic.
Yes, I wrote a Groundhog Day fic.
Because I loved it so much. It was surprising. Like, it's so wild to have a Groundhog Day fic where every day, you know, you relive the day over and over and over again and be surprised. And there was a journey in the surprise process.
I mean,
and I am just, I can't believe that was your first one.
It was, yeah. It was. It's funny because in a way it was quite easy to write. Really, it sort of the ideas just sort of came to me quite easily, and the story developed really, really naturally, which I would have thought.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have been more difficult. Yeah. But it just flowed, and the way, I mean, in a way, the thing I'm most proud of with that one is how the characters developed throughout, which was not something I was planning on at all.
Really?
I thought, yes.
You fooled me. It looked like, I was going to ask, it looked like you had a grand plan. So you didn't outline it? You kind of went the flow? You went with the flow?
I don't do outlining. If I'm quite honest, I just basically go with wherever the story decides to go with. I mean, I might have some. I like to write ahead. Sometimes if I get an idea for a scene or something further along, I'll write it down. But that's about it. You know, I don't have a sort of outline or anything of where things are going. So yeah, originally I thought, you know, this will be a nice short and sweet little story, a few chapters, and we're done. And then it just kind of, it just grew and grew and grew, and it was like, oh my gosh, this has now gone beyond what I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I never planned on it being that long or that complex or anything like that. Yeah.
And then, wait, so was Falling your second one?
It was sort of concurrent.
Oh, it was concurrent.
Yeah, because I was still in the middle of writing the Groundhog Day one, and obviously then there was this song fic competition.
Yeah.
Was it? And
it was a competition. And I noticed in your notes that you did not mention that you won. Not one.
No.
But 2 prizes for Falling.
I did, and I'm still rather in shock, which might be why I didn't mention it. Yes.
Well, I'm mentioning it.
I know.
You got the peer vote, so your peers voted. And
the
moderators of the whole competition voted, and you got both of those prizes. Well deserved, I must say.
Thank you. I mean, I'm still quite in shock over it. I honestly, I honestly can't. It's
there was a lot of entries in that.
There was, and they were.
I think we got like over 30 people. I loved that competition.
I mean, it was amazing.
Really beautiful pieces came out of that. It was. I loved the energy and all over, like, such good fluff and angst.
Yeah.
And was Falling on one of the prompts, or did you ask for Falling?
No, it was actually one of the prompts. I didn't actually.
And what made you choose it? What made you choose that one?
So I chose it because it's such an emotive, beautiful song.
Yeah.
Which really, really speaks to me. I need that sort of thing to write.
Yeah.
I can't, I can't just get a song and write something on it if I don't get the feels for it. Yeah. And with Falling, it was kind of, I could picture the story from the song in a way, even though the song is actually quite, it's probably quite different in a way to what the fic ended up being, I would say, because obviously it's a very modern song. Yeah. And then I wrote a Regency about it, which,
Also, yours has hope. Yours has a happy ending.
Yes. It didn't originally. Well,
it didn't originally? Not so much that it did... Excuse me? Oh, Lord. Oh, thank God.
Okay, not so much that it didn't have a happy end. Well, I can't not have a happy ending.
Okay, well, that's very good to know. Okay. So what was the process like once you chose the song? The story was there for you?
It sort of was. I knew that in a way it wasn't going to... I knew in a way it was going to be sort of very small snapshots of a story. So what I did is I put the song on, put my headphones on, and literally had it on repeat for about 2 hours, as the ideas just sort of came to me as I listened more and more to the song. And then obviously once I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, then I started writing. And then I found that my word count was obviously going to be terribly, terribly over the limit.
That's right. I believe was it like 2,000 words, or it was 2,500 words?
It was originally 2,000, and then I popped up and very nicely asked whether that was a very firm limit, because, I was not sure I was going to be able to get it to that limit. So it was, it was kind of, up to 2,500 is okay. So then I went back to it and I started writing the ending.
Yeah.
And it was still going to be too long. So I had to do quite a ruthless change to the ending, because the ending was actually supposed to be quite ambiguous, probably to follow. Yeah, it was probably to follow more in line with the song, which doesn't particularly have a happy ending. So the ending was supposed to be much more ambiguous originally, because I was going to bring in the whole, conflict about Lady Whistledown. Can we be together? Can we not be together? Right. That sort of thing. But that would have just blown the whole word count out of the water. So
you
I had
alluded to that. You alluded to that a little bit at the end.
Yeah. But obviously, I just literally could not get it in such a short word count. So I was just like, right, let's cut this. Let's do a different ending. And funnily enough, it's actually now my favourite part of the whole story is the actual ending. I mean, I don't know where that ending came from, but wherever it came from,
the and so she did. I love it too. I love it. It's such a beautiful little. It feels right for the emotion of the piece. I don't know what it looked like before you did the cuts, but I love that each snapshot is just about the same length. We spend just about the same amount of time in each moment, and then it builds a little bit more towards the end. And just all of that, everything, all of that, you're right, the song is so emotive, right? And it all builds and builds, and then that ending, because we know this couple the chaos can always extend, but the ending is so beautiful. It's just, that's all they have to do is just allow themselves, and she did. I love it.
Exactly, yeah. It's just, it can be that simple in the end, just let yourself fall, just let go. And it can be that simple. So I really, really love that ending. I agree. It worked out, I think, to a point so much better.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that it came about because of you said because of the rules.
Yeah, because of the actual word limit. The thing is, I'm a very wordy person, so I tend to, why use 2 words when you can use 10? You know, it's obviously at the end of the day. But this really focused me. The word limit really, really focused me in terms of this fic, which I'm actually quite glad for, because otherwise it would have rambled on for quite a lot longer than it actually did.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So this is Giaele. It's the essence. I agree. It's totally the essence of who you are from the 4 fics that we've gotten to know you with in your bio. I love that. That's really cool to know. Thank you for telling us your journey, the journey of that piece. Also, can I also say one of my favorite bits too? And I don't know if you thought about this instantly when you chose the song, is that falling is actually canonically a part of the Polin fandom, because Penelope falls an awful lot and Colin falls off his horse. Penelope falls when he proposes to her. And I noticed you did like a little nod in there in one of the moments you referred back to that. So I really thought that was cool that like you chose the song Falling, and it was about falling in love and all of these snapshots, but you also did a little nod to book canon.
I mean, I just love this is why I love comments on my fics, because they give me such an interesting and sometimes different perspective on what I write. Because whilst there was an element to having the whole overarching theme of falling throughout the story, I'm not sure I quite equated it so much with what you've just said about it being part of Penelope and Colin's story, even in the book. Whereas, like, now that you mention it, it's completely obvious, you know?
You did the little teeny tiny reference, and that's the only thing that made me, like, snap right back to the book.
Yeah.
First he fell off his horse, and then he fell. Oh, the whole list of all the times he fell.
All the times he fell,
my heart. I loved reading that.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved reading it so much.
I mean, it was obviously very apt considering the song.
Yeah.
You know, so I just felt it had to be in there. It had to be quite a prominent thing throughout the story, because otherwise there were obviously a few other little tie-ins to the song through like the lyrics and stuff, but
yeah,
I mean, I found that obviously with it being a very modern song, that a lot of the lyrics wouldn't work in a Regency story. So
I noticed all of them. I had to read it quite a few times.
Yeah.
When I recorded it, and I would be recording and be like, oh my goodness, that's another little micro reference. So like, yes, every time I read it, I got more and more of the essence of the song that you put in. And it's so elegant how it's just woven. It's snapshots too. And you kind of wove little pieces of the song into, I think, every snapshot.
I mean, I felt that was important to give it the because it's one of the...
Yeah, because it's a song fic.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, I mean, my first instinct was to do a by the book, old-fashioned song fic, where you just basically, you'll take some of the lyrics, put it at the beginning of the story, or at each break in your story, and then you build the story around that. and that was my first instinct. Right. But then, like I said, when it was clear there was going to be a regency, I thought, I don't want that in the story, so I'll try and weave it in as best I can throughout the story. So yeah, and they're sort of there if you go looking for them, and obviously you have to know the lyrics quite well as well to find it within the story, because I tried very hard for them to not be obvious, and because
So you listened to Falling for 2 hours before you started writing. After I read your fic, I listened to Falling like on repeat for weeks.
Okay.
I know every syllable of that song because of your fic. Okay. I was like, I need to listen to this song. So it's on every one of my playlists now.
Oh my gosh.
So I know the song pretty well. Yeah. So as I was reading it, it was definitely really cool to identify all of the little whispers of it that you wove throughout the whole piece. It's beautiful.
I mean, I do like to sprinkle things.
You did sprinkle, yes.
Like that. Yeah.
That's absolutely how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us. It's really cool to hear about your process, to hear about the story of that fic. It's really special. I appreciate you.
No, thank you for, discussing it and like I've said, giving me different perspectives on things as well, even on stuff that I've written, because I always find that so interesting how other people read my writing, because I know that once that I put it out there, it kind of, I can have an idea of where I want things to go, but then everyone else will have their own sort of idea on things and their own take on things, because you bring your own personal experiences to the table when you read something. Yeah. So I always find that incredibly interesting to hear different perspectives.
Isn't that what makes fan fiction so beautiful? Like, it's alive. We have a relationship. You know, you're updating, I'm commenting, and
I know,
we're all together. You're 6 time zones away from me right now.
It's absolutely crazy.
And your work makes my day, like, you know, and here we are together. It's pretty special.
I know, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Purely for the love of a fandom, like, purely because we both like these characters so much. Other pollinators love the characters so much that we have to find a space, and you provide that space with your writing. I'll have chats with other commenters in the comment section being like, yes, that's such a good comment.
It's great. It's such a and
I love it.
It's the exchange of ideas is amazing, and it's funny because sometimes I find it very interesting with my longer stories when I'll put out a chapter and I'll get people's comments, and then it makes me think about where I'm actually going with the story sometimes, and sometimes it becomes difficult because some people will comment and I'll think, oh, actually, should I do something different? And then I have to stop myself and be like, no, actually, no. This I know where I want to get with this. I will carry on where I'm going. But it's interesting because I think it does really shape your writing in a way, because it's just constant feedback. To a point, it's just constant feedback on your writing, and it really, really helps your ideas, shape ideas, and just to sort of motivate me, I suppose, a lot of the time. Yeah. I mean, I think the fandom's absolutely amazing.
I hear that.
It's just wonderful, and there's so many wonderful writers and content creators and artists, and just everyone's like,
you make it really easy to motivate you.
Okay, thank you.
It's so easy to read your work and be like, yes, more, give us. Oh, speaking of that, what are you working on now?
So my new fic is basically a soulmates alternate universe of what I think season 3 is sort of going to be like.
Yeah.
It's called Eclipsed Souls, and I'd like to say I'd like to think it's sort of about a third of the way through. But I mean,
yeah, we're definitely in the thick right now. We're in the thick of it.
Oh, there's still quite a bit more to come, so I think you guys should buckle in for yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay, good.
Okay. The name of the podcast is Fics and Rex, so I cannot let you leave without asking you, what is your all-time favorite Polin fic?
I mean, so many, but I think the one I go back to time and time again, and it's kind of like my sort of cozy. I just love reading it, and I don't think I could ever get tired of reading it and reading it again. It's Making It Up As We Go Along by Lazy Tuesday Morning. It is just the best. It has everything. It has everything that you could want. Honestly,
everything.
It's amazing, and it's so well written, and it just has, the fluff and the angst and everything, and only one bed.
Only one bed.
Gosh. Yeah.
Oh, so good. And the angst that happens in that bed is so good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that first night.
Yeah, I just absolutely love it. And the way that things don't just get resolved quickly and easily either, so then there's still another.
But it's also very organic. It's such a good fic. Also, I reread that. I think that's the fic I've reread the most out of every fic.
Yeah.
It's very organic in the way that the angst and the drama gets extended.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't feel like they're just.
There's no dragging.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like they're doing it for the sake of it being dragged out. It just feels right for the characters. I mean, no matter how many times I reread it, though, I always get to the same point, and you just want it to be different. I mean, whoever's read it, I think probably knows. I don't want to spoil or anything, but whoever's read it probably knows the point that I'm talking about. And you're just like, no, why?
Yes, literally using my outside voice. No inner monologue when I read that. Fic, I'm like, please. Say it. Say something.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm totally with you. I love that so much.
So much. And so it really has to be my all-time favorite, that one.
You're not alone. It was also wrecked by several people, and it was my pick as well. It's such a good fic. Everyone should read it. I recommend it to everyone. It has everything.
Yeah, I mean, if there is still anyone out there that has not read it, they need to literally run to read it. Don't go to my page. Do not pass go on my page.
If they listen to this podcast, they already listened to Falling, so they've got that covered.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if everything else can wait, run to this fic instead. Seriously, not read it.
Oh, thank you for your rec. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'll let you go. I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you so much for recording my fic.
That wraps the first episode of the Fics and Recs podcast. Thank you, dearest listeners, readers, and friends for all of your support. A very special thank you to AO3 authors 𝘍𝘪𝘤𝘴 and Lady Kate the Great for your encouragement, suggestions, and advice. I'm sincerely humbled by your kindness. All of the fics mentioned in this episode, as well as Giaele's, 𝘍𝘪𝘤𝘴's, and Lady Kate the Great's AO3 author profiles, will be linked on the Fics and Recs Instagram page. I asked our Instagram followers to share their favorite Polin fics through voice messages, so be sure to stick around until the very end of this recording to hear their recs. Stay tuned for more fanfiction, conversations, and recommendations. Until next time, this is WMN. Happy reading!
This is Lady Kate the Great, and I'm recommending Cat and Mouse by Zimai Bright.
Hi, this is 𝘍𝘪𝘤𝘴, and my recommendation is Romancing Ever After by Giaele.
Hi, this is Chicklitter, and my recommendation is Romanticizing Mr. Bridgerton by Beautiful Tropical Fish.
This is 𝘍𝘪𝘤𝘴. I am recommending Swollen Desires by 𝘍𝘪𝘤𝘴. It's a fantastic story. I think you'll all love it.
Hi, this is Key, and I'm recommending A Matter of Priority by
Happy Girl.